Hi, Elliot.
Hi.
How you doing?
Doing great. It's funny. I flew in yesterday. I'm on the road a lot, so my wife. I'm headed to New York from here. My wife thought I was heading to New York, and I just texted the family group chat. Landed in Vegas here to manifest, and my wife's like, "What? Wait, what?" So, funny thing happened. Vegas week of the Super Bowl, and just happened to stumble into manifest, which I'm super excited to be here for.
Yeah, go Chiefs. Right. Okay, so let's get started. Supposedly, we're talking about transformation. If you don't know, I interview a lot of people around transformation, and I bet you if we were to ask everyone in this room what their definition of transformation is, it'd be pretty different. So I'm going to ask you, what does transformation mean to you?
Well, I love the word transformation, and the first thing I would love to say is, what an amazing time to be in supply chain. I mean, the last 15 years, I would never have imagined how important the role of supply chain has been in transformation. When I started in supply chain 15 years ago, my first role in supply chain was running a distribution center. I was a DC director, and I specifically recall that the role of supply chain at the time was very much about execution. And it's so amazing how the role of supply chain has evolved over the last 15 years to be much more of shaping strategy, informing strategy, and enabling strategy. And so it's really an honor and privilege to be here. And so I think, as I think about transformation and the role of supply chain, it's funny, I specifically remember having a conversation with one of my colleagues one of my former colleagues from West Point. He was a senior military officer at the time, at the onset of COVID, and we were talking about what we expected this to mean for our respective fields. And we talked about we were talking about the 3 R's of supply chain, of responsiveness, reliability, and resiliency. And we talked about how, as supply chain practitioners, there had been a lot of focus on the reliability, cost, on time, quality. In my field, in retail and consumer, more recently there had been focus on responsiveness because the power of was in the hands of consumer, and we needed to be able to respond to demand signals. But there had been very little focus on resiliency. And so I think with the disruptions from the pandemic and how it impacted supply chain, it made organizations really rethink the importance of having a resilient supply chain. And so I'd say all that to when I talk about transformation, what's really exciting for me is the role of the supply chain leader has changed pretty significantly. And the skills and competencies that we needed before, when we were more viewed as an execution arm, have evolved pretty significantly in a very exciting way for me, because I think it's drawing new talent, new ideas, new innovation into the space. And so I think a lot of organizations are viewing supply chain as core and critical to transformation. And so it's just, I would say I can't be more excited about being in supply chain at this time. And I just think that the world has changed quite a bit, and we're right at the epicenter of that.
A lot of times people think of transformation as a digital strategy. But what you're talking about is a lot more than that. It's more comprehensive. You're talking about changes in business models, in processes, in skills, et cetera, right? So you've undergone quite a few transformations yourself. 3, if I'm correct. So tell us what you've learned. What are the lessons that maybe you can pass on?
Yeah, so yes, I'm on my 3rd transformation. When I started, I had long flowing locks, and after my first one, this is how I looked. And so I remember when I embarked on my first transformation, there was somebody said to me, "You're not ready for this. You don't have enough gray." And so, but what I'll say is, like, I've had kind of 3 different transformations. And I'll talk a little bit about each one, and I'll talk about the themes that connect across. And so I started my career in retail and supply chain at Target, and at the time, it was an organization that had a very long track record of success in retail with the expect more, pay less brand promise, very, very successful, and was now kind of faced with reevaluating the way it operated in light of the digital disruption and transformation. So for me, the hallmark of that transformation was really around kind of like facing what had been a very successful business model, and then thinking about things differently from a consumer lens and what the implications were for the organization in terms of ways of working and capabilities to enable. The second transformation was with Ulta Beauty, and in that case, it was a very successful and disruptive business model, all things beauty, all in one place, and so we were scaling really fast, and so really the hallmark for that is how do you support growth but enable new capabilities and improve the customer experience all at the same time and make that transformation part of the growth enablement. Currently, in my role at Footlocker as the Chief Operations Officer, this is an organization that has a very long heritage. We'll be 50 years old this year, and we've been a category leader for many years in the sneaker category. We are the OG in the sneaker category, and we have many amazing assets. We have a long brand heritage. We have 2,600 stores across 28 countries. We have what I consider to be best-in-class team members in store that you may know as our stripers, who are iconic. They're viewed as of the authority. And so
I kind of was expecting you to wear the stripes today, actually.
well, yeah, I'm wearing the spirit of the stripes.
Okay,
Wearing the spirit of the stripes. But I think here is how do we take all of those amazing assets and then evolve the organization to become a more modern, omnichannel, consumer-facing, consumer-centric, organization. And we're well on our way to that with what we're calling our Lace Up plan, which is about expanding sneakers to more occasions, to more consumers, powering up our real estate portfolio, so diversifying our real estate portfolio, deepening our relationship with customers, and then being best-in-class omnichannel. So we're well on our way with that. But I think a few themes that cut across all three of those is one is transformation is as much as a mindset, and it's really important. It has to be something you are, not something that you do. Because the expectations of customers, whether you're in B2C or B2B, are always evolving and always changing. So transformation as a mindset is really important. The other thing is I think it's really important to think about change as constant.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's really easy to think about things as a discrete beginning and a discrete end. But I think the world in which we live in, the last 3 to 4 years have proven that change will be ongoing and change will be constant. And so we have to condition our teams, and we have to develop talent in that way. So that's a second theme that I would highlight.
So transformation isn't a destination, it's a journey.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sure a lot of people in this room have heard the famous McKinsey stat, 70% of transformation projects fail. What do you think? Why is that? What's your take on why they would fail?
Well, thankfully, I haven't been part of a failed transformation.
Okay.
But obviously, you have failures within a transformation. And I would say, if you don't have a failure within a transformation, we're probably not pushing the envelope fast and hard enough, or we're probably not kind of pushing the boundaries of our thinking, because I think that's part of the learning process. But going back to your question of why transformations are successful, some kind of key hallmarks. One is clarity on the problem to be solved, and much deliberation up front on being absolutely clear on what the problem is, why we need to solve it, what the benefits of solving that problem will be. And I think having deliberation up front as a senior leadership is incredibly important, which then leads to my second point, which is alignment, leadership alignment on, once you've identified the problem, have clarity as to why you need to solve that problem, what the benefits will be, really having alignment among the senior leadership team, so the rest of the organization really sees you being locked arms with and being aligned on that. And then I think that the third hallmark, I would say, is really around cross-functional collaboration and collaborating across. I like to say, in this space, operations and supply chain and technology is a very, very complex space. But one of the things I've often said to my teams is that we can't make our complexity our customers' complexity or our stakeholders' complexity, right? So there's a need as we work kind of cross-functionally to be the kind of the translator of what our role is in impacting the overall business value proposition and the transformation, and how we will contribute to the success kind of our failure. And each leader really understanding that and being clear and being able to communicate that clearly to the organization is incredibly important, because throughout the transformation, you have to continually remind people on the destination on the journey we're on, why we're on that journey, how things will improve along the way, and how things will be better in the future, and just being a constant reminder. But if you don't really have clarity on that up front, it can be confusing to the organization on these transformations, because it's an ongoing process and there's no destination. So they need to be constantly reminded of where you are.
Well, apart from your success in transformation, you've also worn multiple hats. You've been CIO, COO, right? I mean, talk to us about how important it is to have this cross-functional collaboration, especially from the perspective of someone who's not in supply chain.
That's a great question. I've always considered myself a generalist. I mean, before I was in retail, I was in financial services, and before I was in financial services, I started my career in the military. So I like to describe, my journey as I like to work on hard problems with great people. And so when I had the opportunity to move into the role of the CIO, I remember, thinking about, like, really, like, what do I know about technology? I had been a consumer of it, so I really understood it from more of a customer. And I say customer, I'm talking about kind of little c customer, meaning as a chief supply chain officer, obviously technology was core to the enablement for my function. As a consumer, obviously I'm very familiar with technology, but in terms of managing technology at a large scale, that was a new learning for me. But I think a couple of things. One is the lines between business and technology have blurred completely. Technology is the business, and business is the technology. And I think for us as practitioners, we need to view technology as very much a core part of our responsibility. And I was very, very passionate about that and very, very vocal about that, which is, I think, part of the way that led me to the role of the CIO. And so while I'm not a subject matter expert in technology, that's not necessarily my background, I had pretty strong convictions around how we as an organization needed to evolve to be a more efficient, agile, and nimble organization. So where they were things about evolving the technology organization to be more centered on the customer, and so having a customer-centric orientation was one. So everything that we do, thinking about it through the lens of the customer. The second one was really around speed and agility. So more iterative delivery of features and functionality, so that we can introduce and see benefits faster than we can learn and adapt from it.
That also applies to failing fast, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I mean, we've all been, for those of us who've been around sometimes, we've worked, and this is not a criticism, it's just more an observation, a reality. We worked on, capabilities that are kind of long lead times, 12 to 18 months, very kind of, much of waterfall methodology, and that's had its place. But I think the customer expectations are evolving so rapidly that big part of my charter as the CIO was to really figure out how do we deliver features and functionality faster and more iteratively. And then the last thing was, better outcomes at a lower cost was the third
Okay.
thing that I had in my mind. And so that got points with the CFO at the time, right?
And that's important.
It's like,
That's important.
more efficient deployment, use of capital, because by definition, you're working in smaller timeframes with very discrete focuses. And so, when I took responsibility for the technology, I really didn't profess to be an expert in that domain, but it really was rallying people around kind of a thinking of a new way of working, a new way of approaching the business. And I think, generally speaking, people want to evolve, and they want to grow, and they want to learn, and they want to adapt. It's really just rallying people around a common way of thinking.
That, and the fact that kind of we need to change anyway, because like you said, volatility is our new normal, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I'll just say one more thing. I discreetly remember the first leadership meeting I had with the technology team. One of the things I did was I took the list of the top 20 retailers in the Fortune 500 in the year 2000, and I pulled that same list for the top 20 retailers in the Fortune 500 in the year 2020, and I think there was just like maybe 3 or 4 of them that were still around. And what I said was, like I said, okay, let's imagine at the time it was Ulta,
Yeah.
2040, what gives us the right to be on this list? And this is talking about what, for those who were on the list in 2000, why are they no longer around? And everybody had something to say. Everybody, it was a very lively conversation. Everybody in that room could give you the 10 reasons why those organizations weren't successful. And then I asked the question, what makes us any different?
Yeah.
So I think it's just really, I think when we start to kind of adapt that mindset, it really, I think, creates a sense of focus on the need for evolution, as you mentioned.
So let's turn our attention now to the future, right? I'm not going to ask you for predictions or anything like that, but I'm going to ask you, what are you excited about with regards to the function of supply chain operations, your business, and transformation?
Well, I'm super excited that I get to wear sneakers every day as part of my job. So
It's a plus, yeah.
and just really super excited about Footlocker and everything that we have in front of us. I will say, specifically, some of the things I'm focused about is just continued movement of a lot of a foundational technology into cloud, into the cloud, and in the agility and nimbleness that will enable for the organization. I'm really excited about, and I know for some of you who are further along on the cloud journey, or I say, okay, yeah, but I think there's still a lot of opportunity to be had, and what that will enable for us. I think I'm really excited about the changes in ways of working, especially as we're inviting the next generation
Yeah.
of people into our space. I'm really excited about the ways of working in terms of how new capabilities will be delivered, smaller, more empowered, cross-functional teams with a clear mandate that are resourced accordingly to deliver it. You getting to experience the impact of your work quickly, and being able to see that come to life. I'm really excited about the evolution in our ways of working, is something. And so, we talk about that as moving from like a project methodology to a product methodology where you have capabilities that you're kind of developing and evolving on an ongoing basis. So I'm really excited about that. And third, I'm really excited about data, and the
Hold on, you're excited about data.
I am.
Okay.
I am. I am excited about data because I think as that's one advantage I think we have as supply chain practitioners. Being data driven is largely core to our DNA because we've very kind of results driven, execution driven. We measure and everything. I think that gives us a bit of an advantage because it's part of our core DNA. But I'm really excited about new technologies, whether it's RFID, IoT, and things like that, of what the greater visibility that will bring to supply chain and allow us to better serve our customers, and more importantly, allow us to better achieve the value, the organizational value proposition that we're a part of. So those are a few things I'm really excited about.
Well, in the last 2 minutes of this session, I'm going to turn this around and ask you a question you asked me yesterday, which is, what are the skill sets that you think the supply chain leader of the future needs? I gave you my answer. You can't rip it off. So.
Oh, man, yeah. I was interviewing Maria yesterday. I was turning the table. So that's a great question. So one is, so let me talk about it. One is, and I'll talk about the things I said earlier. You have to be comfortable with ambiguity. I expect change to be ongoing and continuous, and so I think the nature of the beast is ambiguity, and so comfort with ambiguity is really important. And I think the resiliency and adaptability are key competencies, that I would be looking for of someone who can operate in a space and then problem solve to solve problems. The second thing is, and I can't steal your answer, but I love some of the things you said around, and you said economist, I think you
Geopolitician.
said geopolitician, right?
Data expert, tech expert.
I think if you look at, for example, what's happening like with the Suez Canal, we can't operate within our individual kind of silo in our business. We have to think about the implications of what's happening in the world around us, right? So you want people to be able to look at world events and clearly then start to understand what does this mean for our business and be in the room and articulate why this matters for us, right? It's not enough to just have an understanding of it. You have to be able to articulate and communicate why that matters for us. So that I think that the communication, the kind of global awareness and communication is another thing. And then I think the last thing, which I think does not change, and I think holds true, is the role of leader and influencer. I think, as I've mentioned about data and execution, I think that's another advantage that we have as supply chain practitioners, because supply chain by definition has largely been very people intensive. And so I think we have a role to play in terms of leadership and influence in the organization. I know we're at time, so the one thing I would just leave with is, when I talked about, is the competency of ambiguity, and is the kind of the call to action here is that, in my mind, ambiguity creates opportunity. And so one of my favorite sayings is, the best way to predict the future is to invent it or to create it. And so what I love about this conference and Manifest is about the future being now is I very much view that the folks in this room are those who will be inventing and creating the future for our organizations.
On that note, thanks very much, Elliot. I appreciate you being here, and thanks everyone for giving us the time.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, Maria.